Welcome to Adapter Parish, the podcast about adaptation. Merry Christmas, everybody, and also happy 8th night of Hanukkah. This is episode number 6, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. We've been looking forward to this one for a while, and we can't wait for you to hear it. 1 classic novella and 5 movies, all read and watched, so we can report back to you here. Before we get started, let's talk about our next episode. I think the best way to describe our next episode is just to read the intro from one of the things we watched, one of the adaptations of our next topic. This is word for word. In the early 1860s, America was torn apart by violent civil war. The South seceded from the Union, refusing to abolish slavery. Outnumbered and outgunned, the Southern rebels fought long and hard. The cost in lives and money was high for all involved. Together, these 4 young girls faced life during those dark days of the Civil War. This is the story of these Little Women. Yes, in our next episode, we'll be talking about Louisa May Alcott's Little Women. We read the book, watched 3 movies, as well as the 1980 Japanese hour-long special where we got that amazing description. It's something else. Won't you join us? As always, we'll talk about how to get in touch with us at the end of the episode, and we hope that you're all enjoying the show so far, telling your friends and leaving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And now, on with the show. Episode 6, A Christmas Carol. Merry Christmas, everybody. Welcome to Adapter Parish. My name is Jeremy Latour.
I'm Arielle Lipshaw.
And we are going to be talking about things being turned into other things.
That's right. This is a podcast about adaptation.
So what are we talking about this week?
This week, well, this is our special holiday episode.
Oh, yeah. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
And we will be talking about the classic tale, A Christmas Carol.
Exactly. We are 2 Jews, and we're going to crack A Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
We're gonna crack it.
We're gonna crack it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it just takes an outside perspective.
It really does.
Absolutely.
It really does.
So for those who are unaware, because perhaps you have been under a rock, A Christmas Carol is a novella, would you call it, by Charles Dickens? It's about 100 pages.
It didn't take very, very long to read, so
No.
I would call that a novella.
And it was written in 1843.
Super long time ago.
And it has been adapted for stage and screen approximately 8 billion times.
All the times.
Like, so many times.
Every show is a Christmas Carol.
Everything is a Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
And that's not even counting the sort of spin-off type of adaptations where they use...
what we call Christmas Carol derivatives.
Yes, where they use the sort of general plot of A Christmas Carol. I'm literally just talking about, this is a thing about Ebenezer Scrooge, who lives a long time ago and is mean. So, should we talk really briefly about what the plot of A Christmas Carol?
I think we should.
Okay, so let's try to do it in like under a minute.
Okay. Can I try?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Ebenezer Scrooge is a dick, and it's Christmas. You can't be a dick on Christmas. So all these ghosts come to him and say, hey, stop being a dick. I'm the ghost of this. Stop being a dick. I'm the ghost of this. Stop being a dick. I'm the ghost of this. Stop being a dick. And he's like, man, all these ghosts are telling me to stop being a dick. Guess what happens?
He stops being a dick.
He stops being a dick, and it's the happiest story ever.
Yay!
It's really a wonderful tale.
Hooray.
Yeah.
So that was actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so we watched a number of adaptations.
Yes, we did.
Of this classic tale. From almost every decade, honestly. We have one from the 50s, the 80s, 2 from the 90s, and 1 from the 2010s.
Yes.
No, the 2000s.
The 2000s.
Because it's 2009.
Exactly.
Do you want to just give like a brief overview of who like some of the characters are, and we can talk about how we gotta kind of clip along here because we watched a lot of A Christmas Carol.
I mean, I just want to start by saying I liked it. I'd never read it before.
You never read The Christmas Carol before?
No, I mean, it's one of those things where like everybody knows the story of A Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
Everybody knows it. And I've always loved it. Like the story I think is wonderful, and I love any adaptations of it. I think it's very, very strong. I think Dickens knew what he was doing. But this is the first time I've ever actually sat down and read A Christmas Carol from start to finish.
Huh, I didn't know that. Well, yeah, A Christmas Carol is honestly one of my favorite tales. I have a beautiful like annotated version that we have over there on the table. And
Pass the dog.
What?
Just pass the dog.
Yes, pass the dog.
Right.
And I had read it before and seen all but one of these versions I had seen before. No, I'm sorry, all but two I had seen before. And I always used to go and see it. They used to do a version of it at the Indiana Repertory Theater when I was in high school. And I would go every Christmas and see it. And I have all those programs. So it's a story that I know very, very well. So it was very interesting kind of watching these adaptations back to back and seeing what they did the same and what they did different and all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, my experience of it was like... So, we haven't said yet what versions we've watched, but I'll just spoil one of them by saying that I think a huge experience that I had of the Christmas Carol was the Muppet Christmas Carol.
The best one.
Well...
Did that...
spoiler alert, that's the one we like the most, and we're going to get into it. But, like, that was it. And I didn't see most of the other versions, but I'd seen, like, there's TV movies and cartoons, and, like, I saw Scrooged when I was a kid, and these are... You can't help but be intimately familiar with it.
Sure, and I mean, even getting into stuff like It's a Wonderful Life is totally just a Christmas Carol.
Exactly.
There's the story is so in the culture that, like, almost any story with this sort of plot of someone...
is a dick.
Well, what I was going to say is someone gets a glimpse of their life, either without them or how it might be or how it could have been.
Right.
And changes their ways. I mean, that's Christmas Carol. That I feel like that all just, like, goes straight back to a Christmas Carol.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So much so that, like, it's so many elements of a Christmas Carol are in the culture. Mm-hmm. Like, we say someone is a Scrooge if they're, kind of a miser and kind of, a killjoy. Like, that's something just that we say. Like, we talk about the ghost of Christmas past or the ghost of Christmas future or, just things like that. And, you see references to it everywhere. Like, if you're not familiar with A Christmas Carol, you probably miss a lot of references, like, I don't know, on The Simpsons or whatever.
Right. Well, I mean, what are you going to name? Here's the deal. You're going to create a character. He's a duck. He's got a ton of money, and he likes swimming through it. What are you going to name him?
Scrooge McDuck.
Exactly. You're going to say, well, Scrooge is his first name now. But it's in the culture. Like, actually, this is something that I've been saving to tell you.
Oh, okay.
Ask me, who is the platonic ideal of Scrooge in my mind?
Who is the platonic ideal of Scrooge in your mind?
It's the Scrooge from the Honey Nut Cheerio commercials from the late 80s, early 90s.
I don't remember that.
Here's the deal. I bet a lot of our listeners do. And I'll show it to you after.
I wasn't allowed to watch very much TV.
But that is Scrooge. He is in the culture. And I really liked the book. I thought it was really good.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was great. Now, of all the versions that we watched, let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. Did you feel that any of them diverged, and we can get into specifics later, but did you feel that any of them diverged significantly from the book?
It's interesting. No.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Even the Muppet one.
Yeah, no.
Actually doesn't diverge.
Especially the Muppet one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I really don't think so. I mean, this is something that I was telling you when we were watching the first version of it. I said, I'm really interested to watch all of these and find out, because I really feel like A Christmas Carol is just an incredibly strong story, and it can withstand... I was basically sitting there thinking, man, is A Christmas Carol like the story that can withstand any adaptation? We found out that no it's not. But I was really excited to find out.
Right. And I think because of that, we are going to kind of try to structure the podcast a tiny bit differently than we usually do, because usually we kind of talk about the original thing, and then adaptation 1, adaptation 2, adaptation 3, and so on.
Right.
But if we did it that way with this, I think it would be really boring, especially because we watched 5 different adaptations. So I think instead, and we talked about this a little bit before the show, I think a great way to do it is just to kind of pick out different elements and different characters and different points in the plot, and just talk about, what the adaptations we thought did well and the adaptations we thought didn't do as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Okay, cool. So where should we start?
So let's just talk about the different adaptations that we watched.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's a good place to start.
So it starts with
1951. Alistair Sim. That is the version that we watched.
Exactly, and it was originally called Scrooge.
Yes, just Scrooge.
Exactly,
yeah.
but now it's called.
But it's A Christmas Carol.
They changed the name to A Christmas Carol.
It's on YouTube. We found it on YouTube.
And then we watched
1984. Was a TV movie, I believe, starring George C. Scott.
Because if you watched Patton and thought this guy should play Ebenezer Scrooge,
right,
you got your wish.
This is the version for you. Lots of very acclaimed British actors
Oh,
in that version. Like
yeah.
probably the most all-star of all the casts.
And I just want to prepare people right now. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, because apparently the 1984 version is a lot of people's favorite version, and it's like the version that they watch at Christmas.
Yeah.
This episode might not make you happy.
We didn't love it.
We did not love it.
We found it not great.
Exactly.
Yeah. But we'll get to it.
We'll get to it. So then we skip to
1992.
1992.
Yep. And that is The Muppets.
Mm-hmm.
The Muppet Christmas Carol, which is yours and my probably most frequently watched version in our lives.
It's definitely my favorite version of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But close second for me, 1999.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I don't know. Have we talked about Patrick Stewart on this podcast before? I don't think we've had any occasion to.
I think he's come up.
Yeah. Patrick, when I say I have a relationship with Patrick Stewart, I don't mean that in a literal sense. But we have in our bedroom probably 5 or 6 different representations of Captain Picard. Like our bedroom is like a shrine to Captain Picard.
And it's really funny because a couple of days ago you said to me, I think on the podcast I'm going to tell them about our shrine in the bedroom, and I took issue with that.
Because it's mine.
It's yours.
Yeah.
It is not
fair.
mine. I mean, he's wonderful and I love him.
That's
but
fair.
It is your shrine.
That's fair.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It's not a shrine on purpose. It was just I happened to accumulate, and then I realized how much stuff I had, and it was a little bit creepy.
No shrine starts as a shrine. You just get a couple of things, and you go like, "Oh man, I guess I have a shrine now."
And then suddenly you have a shrine.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally we watched the 2009 semi-animated version.
No, completely animated.
Yeah, complete. Well, I don't know. Yeah, I mean it's completely animated, but like it's like weird motion capture.
Yep.
Stuff.
Disney's A Christmas Carol. Starring Jim Carrey.
As everybody.
Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Jim Carrey and Jim Carrey.
Just
and also Colin Firth.
Clearly a passion project of some kind.
Yeah. I think I'd love to just go through all 5 of those really quick and just give our kind of gut reaction to them.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
1951. Alistair Sim.
I used to watch this one as a kid. This one has like it's close to my heart. I think it's great.
It's great.
It's very classic.
Mm-hmm. I think parts of it don't hold up.
Yeah, and they added the one thing that they did in this one more so than any other is they added a ton of stuff that wasn't in the book.
Yeah.
Like lots of different scenes that weren't in the book at all.
Well, I think when we were watching it, we found out that like the Ghost of Christmas Past, that was like more than half the movie.
Yeah, we timed some of the segments.
Yeah.
Just to compare.
There was a lot.
Like there's all this stuff with Scrooge and like this other businessman and like there's this weird board meeting. Like there's just all this stuff about like Scrooge's career as a young businessman.
Yeah.
Which we don't need. Like
no.
I felt really unnecessary. But the whole thing, I mean, each of these versions was about the same length, I would say. Like none of them were over 2 hours.
No.
I mean, I think the 1984 one was maybe an hour and 45 minutes, but the rest of them were all like a trim 90 minutes.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I liked it.
No, I liked it too. Mm-hmm. I liked it too. That one's up there for me. I mean, I would watch that again.
Mm-hmm. 1984.
1984. Okay, so a couple things about the 1984 one. The cast is amazing.
Yeah.
We've got George C. Scott, of course, tragically miscast.
Well, hang on. We're going to get to it.
Okay.
We're going to get to we're going to get to Scrooge a little bit later.
We'll get to Scrooge a little bit later. But I do want to say the one thing that really jumped out to me about the casting in the 1984 version, and I guess we can talk about it when we talk about Fred, is that Roger Rees, I don't know how many people know about Roger Rees. In 1984, Roger Rees as an actor in Dickens, like a Dickens adaptation, would have been the biggest star because he had just done Nicholas Nickleby, which was like this 8-hour theatrical production of Nicholas Nickleby that the Royal Shakespeare Company did. I have seen the whole thing. I have it somewhere. I think it's in my parents' basement on VHS tape.
No, it's in our attic now.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well.
On VHS tape.
On VHS.
It may as well be on the moon.
We still can't watch it.
It's basically on the moon.
It's on the moon. So, like, he would have been a huge star, and they really amped up his role in the production. Like, Fred is a major character. Fred is Scrooge's nephew, by the way, for those that don't know. And possibly to the detriment of the plot, because he's really not that important of a character.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing about it, because I think a lot of things happened in it that were a detriment to the plot.
Well, yeah.
I mean, the only thing
I loved seeing Roger Reese.
Yeah.
Like, that was great. I really.
I'd love to hear a little bit more later about what your relationship with him is.
Unlike Patrick Stewart, I actually had an actual human relationship with Roger Reese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will only say this about the 1984 one. 5 minutes into it, I remember turning to you and saying, like, I love this.
Yeah, the first couple minutes are great.
And then it gets rough.
Yeah, it gets rough.
It gets real rough.
So rough.
And it stays rough the entire time.
Yeah, it doesn't redeem itself at all.
It is.
Unlike Scrooge, it does not redeem itself.
Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. It was weak, and I get that it's people's favorite, and it absolutely has redeeming qualities, but it just does not do it for me.
Yeah.
It really didn't do it for me.
We didn't care for it. But then, shortly thereafter, we watched a great version.
Mm-hmm.
Muppet Christmas Carol.
It's so good.
1982.
Interestingly, The Muppet Christmas Carol.
Not
a Muppet Christmas Carol.
Correct.
Yeah. Maybe I'm the only one who thought that was interesting.
I think you're the only one. I don't find
might
that interesting.
But it's great.
It's got Muppets in it. Like,
it's
what
so
else
good.
can you say? Like, as a quick overview, it's got Michael Caine and Muppets.
Yeah.
Like, you can't go wrong with that.
And it is, crazily enough, it is one of the most accurate productions of the novel.
Yeah, although interestingly, they cut a lot from the book. Mm-hmm. So I went through. I will say this, and we'll talk about this. But basically, what I did was I went through the book, and I wrote down for the 3 ghost segments, past, present, and future. I wrote down sort of all the little scenes that Scrooge observes, mm-hmm. and then I marked down as we watched each version which scenes were in which version to see like how many of them kind of hit them all and how many skipped and whatever. And the Muppet Christmas Carol had the fewest of them. But the Muppet Christmas Carol is also a musical, so mm-hmm. it had a ton of songs. Mm-hmm. And I thought that filled in the gaps quite nicely. Mm-hmm. So then we went on and watched the 1999 Patrick Stewart version. I love that version. I think like for a straightforward mm-hmm. adaptation, like a non-Muppet adaptation, that one really does it for me. I think it's fantastic.
If you told me, here's the deal, your favorite Christmas Carol, the best one, can't have Muppets in it, I'm going to say, okay, well then it's the Patrick Stewart one. Yeah. That's easy. I'm done.
Yeah,
and it's weird because it really, to me, it exists on the other side of the coin from the George C. Scott one, because it's a TV movie, mm-hmm. but it's the best version of what a TV movie of A Christmas Carol at that time could be.
Yes.
Unlike the George C. Scott one, which was
possibly the worst.
Pretty just rough.
It's rough.
Just real rough.
It's rough. We'll get to it.
Yeah.
And then,
but there's so many good things to say about the 1999 Christmas Carol.
Yes, and we will. And then the final version, oh God, I did not like this at all. 2009, weird Polar Express style animation. Like weird, like motion capture. About 2 minutes in, I turned to you and I was like, what's the term for? And you turned back to me and said, Uncanny Valley. And I was like, yes, Uncanny Valley. It's horrifying. It's awful to watch.
Yeah, so that's the Robert Zemeckis one. And I will say this for Robert Zemeckis. He is, as a filmmaker, he pushes technology forward in a way that most filmmakers don't. In the way a lot don't. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for what he does. And in the mid-2000s, he got into his head. He said, here's what I'll do. We'll capture performances digitally, and then we can put any kind of face and body we want on them. And this led to Polar Express, mm-hmm. Christmas Carol. Yep. He did Beowulf. Oh. And, obviously other filmmakers have taken it and have built on it. And so we have Avatar, which is the highest grossing movie of all time.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it is.
I never saw it.
So, and then we have later versions like The Adventures of Tintin, mm-hmm. which was done by Peter Jackson and Steven Spielberg, which I was actually watching a few minutes of it earlier today. It, just to kind of compare, mm-hmm. it is so much better. And I really think the biggest thing is what you said. It's the Uncanny Valley.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
It's just horrifying. The faces are horrifying.
And I think it comes down to the eyes.
Yeah.
The eyes are dead.
Yeah.
They look
awful.
like corpses.
It's just awful to see.
It's like slightly better than the Polar Express, but it gets much better later.
And I also will say that of all the 5 versions that we watched, this is the Disney version, right?
Yeah.
This was the only version that had multiple moments that I found inappropriately violent and sexual. Like, there was weird stuff in this one. It's mm-hmm. the Disney version.
Yeah, but it's also Robert Zemeckis, and he's got kind of a sick sense of humor.
I mean...
He's got a wicked side to him.
I know, but like, goodness me.
I know. It is also, I will say, the most boring version.
It was so boring. It was so slow. So slow. Like something would happen. A character would speak, and I would like look at my phone and get distracted. And 5 minutes later, I would realize the next thing was happening.
Mm-hmm.
But like there had been all of this time in between that I had just been like, stuff had been happening on screen that I did not need to see or know about.
Yeah. It's a mess.
It was a mess.
I really think it's a mess.
And
it does a thing. Well, let me ask you a question right now.
Go ahead.
So those are the 5 versions that we talked about.
Yeah.
We're going to go through all of the different characters in those movies. I think the biggest character to start with is Charles Dickens himself.
Okay.
And because each of these adaptations deals with the prose of A Christmas Carol in different ways.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'd love to start with that.
Okay, that's great.
What to you is the best way that any of these dealt with the prose of Charles Dickens?
Well, one of them included Charles Dickens as a character.
Yes.
As portrayed by Gonzo the Great.
The Great Gonzo.
The Great Gonzo.
Yeah.
Okay. With his friend Rizzo the Rat.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was fantastic.
I loved it.
I think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure you could do it in a non-Muppet oeuvre in a way that felt natural.
Mm-hmm.
But being that it is a Muppet, I think it's great, especially because it's supposed to be a kid's movie. So it's like, look, here I am the author, I'm going to tell you a story. 2009 Christmas Carol did it in a terrible way, which is there was just sort of a shot of a book, A Christmas Carol, and then the book opened and then the story started.
I hated that so much.
I know that you did.
I have a pet peeve. I cannot stand adaptations that start with the book itself. Opening, we are going to tell, just so everybody knows, this is the book you know.
Yeah.
I hate that.
And then 1984 and 99 both did it in a very similar way, which was they sort of had narration at the beginning and the end, in both cases by the nephew.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, which was it 2009 that someone turned and actually spoke to the camera?
Yeah, that's the 2009 one.
And that I didn't like that at all.
Yeah, because basically in the 2009 one, I just think this is such a mess. It starts off with the book, and you actually see whatever.
Bob Cratchit spoke to the camera at the end. I'm sorry. I just
exactly.
yelled into the microphone.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So the movie starts with the book opening, and you see the first line, which is something along the lines of "To begin with, Marley was dead."
Marley was dead to begin with.
And then, so we're given to understand that, there's not going to be any narration because we see the book itself, and the prose is the prose. No one's going to speak the prose. But then at the end of the movie, Bob Cratchit walks out of the office, and he turns to the camera and just starts talking.
It's very strange. He breaks the fourth wall in a really strange way.
And it's fine if they had already done that, but to suddenly come out of left field with it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I really, really think it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So the 1951 version, I thought handled it well because they took an actor who was in the movie, who has a fantastic voice, an actor named Peter Bull, who was the Russian ambassador in Dr. Strangelove.
There you go.
Or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. And he basically says the first few lines of prose in the movie as narration, but then it cuts, and it turns out what he's doing is he's telling a story to another businessman at the beginning of the movie, and then Scrooge walks through.
Right.
So I liked that.
Okay.
I thought that made sense.
Cool.
I really think, though, my favorite of all of them is actually the 1999 Patrick Stewart version.
Where it's the nephew.
Well, in terms of how they deal with Dickens's prose, I preferred the 99 one.
Oh, because they kind of like wrap it into some of the dialogue, especially in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's that scene at the beginning where it's at Marley's funeral, so it's 7 years before the story takes place, and you have Patrick Stewart and the other characters have a whole conversation about why dead as a doornail is the idiom that we use.
Right.
Why not dead as something else? Right. And one of them says dead as a doorknob or dead as a door knocker.
Right.
Which
is an important thing.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think is actually my favorite version of all of them.
Yeah.
Even though I love Gonzo,
yeah.
and I think that's a close second for me.
Yeah, and another thing along those lines that they do in that particular version that I really appreciate is they sort of let Patrick Stewart's performance carry some of the narration. The example that I have is the scene where Scrooge is talking to his nephew in his office, and he said, why did you get married? And the nephew says, because I fell in love. And the line in the book is, love, said Scrooge, as if that were the only thing sillier than a Merry Christmas. So he doesn't say that, right? It's part of the narration. But many of the versions have Scrooge saying, "Ha, love, that's the only thing sillier than a Merry Christmas." But in Patrick Stewart's version, he just goes, "Love, oh," like he just lets the attitude be carried in his performance, and he doesn't have to explain it to the audience.
He sells it.
Yeah, there were a couple of versions that they really had to explain some of the stuff, and that was really annoying to me. Like,
although I, as a viewer, always appreciate the filmmakers explaining everything to
joke.
me. Yeah. When you explain a joke, it makes it funnier.
Right. The one that I wrote down was the Ghost of Christmas present says, "I have more than 1,800 of my brothers have come before me," which meaning there have been more than 1,800 Christmas days, because it's 1842, which was something I did not get for many, many years until I was an adult, because I didn't really understand.
Well, so you needed the filmmakers to explain it
I
to
didn't
you.
know about Jesus when I was a child. But the 2009 version...
Two Jews gonna crack a Christmas carol.
The 2009 version is the only one where the Ghost of Christmas Present sees fit to go, more than 1,800, 1,843 as a matter of fact. Like, to just really, really hammer that point home, and I found that super obnoxious.
Yeah. So the way they deal with the prose, I think that's basically it. I really think my favorite was the 1999 one. Mm-hmm. I think Muppet is a close second.
Oh, Muppet.
And I just think the worst one is 2009.
I mean, that's going to be the case for a lot of these.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
So let's talk about some of the other characters.
Okay.
Let's talk about some of the minor characters.
Yeah, we want to start with minor and kind of work our way up.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there are a few minor characters that have one scene together that you could not stand.
Yep. I hate this scene so much.
Let's talk about that. It's the scene, The Ghost of Christmas Future. I'm just going to set it up for you, and then you can go ahead and talk. Mm-hmm. The Ghost of Christmas Future is showing Scrooge what is going to happen to his possessions after he's dead, which is that nobody cares about him, and everybody just rushes in and steals all of his shit and takes it to the rag and bone man to sell. And so there's a scene where, like, the cleaning woman and the washerwoman and the undertaker all come together at the rag and bone man's shop to sell the things, and there's a extremely long conversation about what they have taken and how much money
and
they're going to get for it.
You really get to know them as characters, and you get to know their relationships and all manner of things don't matter in the least. And Jeremy got so annoyed at a certain point he started timing the scene in different versions, and it ranged anywhere from like 1 to 6 minutes. Yep. Yeah. In the 1951 one, it's especially long. And in the Patrick Stewart one, it's very long.
It's very long.
I hate this scene so much.
The Muppet one, it's like a quick 59 seconds.
It's a minute.
Yeah.
And it is my very favorite version of the scene because it doesn't need to be long.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be long. These are horrible people. They've stolen stuff. They do not care about the person that died because he was a jerk. That's all we need to know. Scrooge's reaction is the more important part of it. We don't need to see everything else.
Yeah.
So the Muppet one gets my vote. That is my favorite, and I really think the 1951 version is my least favorite.
Yeah. Well, the reason the 1951 version is so long is because the actress playing Mrs. Dilber was a name. And so that's why there's that whole scene with her and Scrooge at the end as well. She was like famous for these Cockney characters that she would play. That's also the reason that she's the only character with a Cockney accent in the entire movie.
Well, she's not a name now, so I stick with my vote.
I mean, that's fair. I'm just letting you know.
Mm-hmm. Her grandkids are gonna send really angry texts.
Honestly, like great grandkids at this point.
Yeah.
So
she was fine.
No, she's great.
I have no problem with her.
I enjoy her.
I just hate the scene.
Yeah. Let's talk about, if we're going to do minor characters, let's talk about the Prosperous Gentleman.
Yeah.
So the Prosperous Gentlemen are these two guys that come to see Scrooge. This is before he's met any of the ghosts. They come to see him and ask him for a donation to their charity to help the poor. And he says this is where we get the famous line, if they'd rather die, they'd better do it and decrease the surplus population. And then after he's been visited by all the ghosts, he feels very bad, and he goes back to them and he says, I would like to give you a whole bunch of money for the poor.
Mm-hmm. Which I just want to say, I really appreciate the fact that I like that in the novel, Dickens goes out of his way to say that that the audience doesn't know what value Scrooge gives.
Right.
What amount he gives.
Right. And so in every single version, he just kind of whispers in their ear.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I just think this is a small thing that I liked in every single version.
I like it when authors don't tie their whatever it is, their money or whatever it is to a place. Although there is a lot of talk about how much money Bob Cratchit makes.
Which changes slightly throughout the versions.
No, it's always 15 shillings a week.
Is it 15?
15.
I thought in one version it was 5.
No. I don't believe it's ever
Clearly,
5.
I've done a lot of preparation for this.
You have, actually.
Yeah.
So the Prosperous Gentleman, I have 2 that I want to call out.
Yep.
One is the Muppets, because it's Bunsen and Beaker.
I'm just going to say they're my favorite.
Beaker is my spirit animal. I love Beaker so much.
That's incorrect.
Well, who is?
Scooter.
My Muppet spirit animal.
You're Scooter.
Why?
Because Scooter is cute and he has big glasses and he gets shit done. He runs things. That's what you do.
That's fair.
He's a manager.
Yeah, that's fair. So I really enjoyed that. I also want to talk about the actor Edward Petherbridge in the 1999 version, because he has a line that was a mystery. And we did not understand what he was saying. And we turned on the subtitles. And it was still a mystery because it was a word we did not recognize.
And I decided to go to the internet to find out what he said.
And
come to find out, it's a mystery.
It's a mystery.
We're not the only ones who want to know. And we're not the only ones who don't have an answer. And I found a fantastic website.
Who had actually not only emailed, unfortunately, the screenwriter...
We'll put a link to it in the show notes.
Yeah, unfortunately, the screenwriter has passed. So we cannot ask him.
Yep.
But he emailed Patrick Stewart and the actor Edward Petherbridge. The line is something to the effect of,
May I press your cajeels?
Cajeels?
And so in the subtitles, it's written Cudial.
Cadeals. And Patrick Stewart apparently said, I think it was just a mistake. And Edward Petherbridge apparently was very strong to this blogger that it was not a mistake. It was in the script. He asked about it. It was supposed to be some kind of Cockney slang for hand or glove, and he didn't want to press the issue with the screenwriter. But nobody in the history of all time apparently has ever recorded this word before or since. So it is a mystery.
And if you are the person who knows what the deal is,
oh my God, please write us.
Just let us know.
Yeah.
Please let us know. So I think that one is definitely worth mentioning.
Yeah.
The Muppets are my favorite.
The Muppets are great.
Because I'm just going to say there's a specific reason why I think the Muppets are my favorite, not just beyond the fact that I love Bunsen and Beaker. This is a very emotional story.
Yes.
And the most important thing about the Prosperous Gentleman is not who they are, how they behave. It's how Scrooge reacts to them and how they react to Scrooge on an emotional level. And Beaker, as an example, has no lines.
He just says, me.
And his emotion in that scene and Scrooge's emotion in that scene is so completely palpable.
It's so sweet. And then at the end, he gives him his scarf.
They are my favorite because they actually serve the story.
Yeah.
They're not just 2 random Muppets. They're 2 of the best Muppets to play those characters.
So good.
That's one of the things I love about the Muppet versions in all of these adaptations. They don't just throw Muppets in, they cast them.
I mean...
They really cast them for the right parts.
Like, Fozzie is Fozziewig. Like, how... Is that a coincidence? Do we have any research on how those names came to be so similar?
No.
Like, that's amazing.
No,
I think it's Fezziwig, obviously.
Yeah.
Not but in the Muppet version, it's Fozziewig, because, of course, it has to be.
Well, before we get to Mr. Fezziwig,
are
there any... No, it's fine. Are there any... What version of the Prosperous Gentleman didn't do it for you?
I don't know that there were any that didn't do it for me. I feel like it's neutral to good.
Yeah.
I don't feel like any of them were... I don't have any memory of the other ones, particularly.
Yeah. They're all fine.
Except 1984.
Yeah.
It's Alfred.
It's
Batman.
Michael Gauff. Yeah. So Michael Gauff from the 1989 and on Batman movies plays one of the Prosperous Gentlemen. He's great, actually.
Yeah.
No, he's actually fantastic. I really love him. No, I have no problem with any of them. And I really like Carrie Elwes is one of the Prosperous Gentlemen in the 2009 version.
Unrecognizable.
Totally unrecognizable, but once you know, you can hear his voice, and he's great.
We met him at Comic-Con.
We did. He's a very nice guy.
He's so sweet.
He's very nice.
He and I went to the same college, so we talked about that for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So moving kind of up in terms of characters. Do you want to talk about Fezziwig?
Let's talk about Fezziwig.
We can talk about Fezziwig and then talk about Belle/Alice/ unnamed Scrooge's girlfriend. Okay, so Fezziwig, It's going to be hard for me not to say Fozziwig. So if I slip up and say Fozziwig, that is a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
So in the Muppet version, he's played by
Fozzie.
Mm-hmm. In the I like the one in the Patrick Stewart version.
He's my favorite.
Yeah, he's great. He's great. One of the things I really liked about the Fezziwig scene, so there's a scene where Scrooge goes back to visit his youth, and his first employer was just this wonderful man, and he gave this wonderful Christmas party every Christmas.
Ian McNeice, by the way.
Ian McNeice, yeah, he's in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he's one of the he's one of those guys.
Yeah, and Fezziwig is just this wonderful gentleman, and he's got a lively wife and like a bunch of daughters and all this stuff. And one of the things I really liked about that Fezziwig and his family in the Patrick Stewart version was I liked that the Fezziwig and his wife are both portly people.
They're plus size.
His wife definitely. I would not surprise me if the actress who plays his wife has played Madame Thénardier in some version of Les Mis. But all the daughters were also like the daughters of two portly people were chubby themselves, and I really liked that they were sort of people of different body types were being portrayed as attractive and desirable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really like that, and also that's quite accurate to period, that a very, very skinny woman would not have been super attractive. You would want to be someone who had a little more, a little more curves to you. Mm-hmm. So I liked that sort of realism. I always find it very anachronistic when people in period dramas are like stick skinny. Keira Knightley.
She's a tomboy beanpole, and she's great.
Cool. So I liked that. What were the other?
So 51 and 84, honestly, they're fine.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of.
They're fine.
I don't think I really even took any notes on.
I don't remember strongly disliking them. I don't remember strongly liking them. They're fine.
Yeah, I mean,
will say
the 1951 version, there's a very weird like plot point that like Scrooge buys Fezziwig out.
Oh yeah, but
like
again, we learn
like,
about Scrooge's history as a businessman.
He's been like put out of business by Scrooge and Marley.
I liked that moment actually. Now that I think about it,
it was really nice. It was nice but we didn't need it. Like it
wasn't
necessary.
But it was done well. No, I think my favorite version was the 99, and I love Fozzie. Mm-hmm. I love him. He's wonderful, but the 1999 one's my favorite. But I do want to say specifically that the 2009 version I hated. So it's Bob Hoskins.
Yes.
And as animated, they shrink him down. They turn him into a little goblin man who is...
I'm a goblin man. I'm a goblin.
Of all of the unsettling characters in the movie, he's the most unsettling.
I mean, they're all extremely unsettling.
He and Bob Cratchit, who I'll get to.
We'll talk about him in a minute.
He is terrifying in this movie. They have him do... His introduction is he basically... He's a cartoon character, which is... I know that's weird to say in a movie that's animated, but it's a movie that's animated that has a lot of realism in it.
Yeah, he does all these weird, like, flips and, like... Physics
don't apply to him.
Yeah, no.
And it doesn't work.
Yeah.
He is terrifying and deeply unsettling, and I hated him.
Yeah.
I hated him. And I love Bob Hoskins, but I hated this version of Fezziwig.
Yeah. So as long as we're in the past,
mm-hmm.
we talk about Scrooge's girlfriend very briefly.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes she's called Belle, and sometimes she's called Alice, and sometimes I think she has no name. But she's usually called Belle.
Let's say the female part's a little underwritten.
Yeah, the female... Okay, here's my segment. The female character's a little underwritten. Here she is. Yeah. So the Muppet one is very interesting. Do you want to talk about the song?
Yeah, so there's a song. This is one of the interesting things about her. Like, this is the thing about Belle of note. In the Muppet version, which is a musical, there was a song that they wrote, recorded, filmed, called The Love Is Gone.
The Love Is Gone.
Okay.
Which was on the VHS copy that we had, that I had as a child.
So it got cut from the movie.
Right.
Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was at Disney at the time, said, no, kids are going to find that boring. They're not going to get into it, so we're going to cut that.
And indeed we did. We fast-forwarded it every time.
Yeah, and Brian Henson, who directed it, was not... I mean, he was sad about that and spoke about that later. And then for the VHS version, it was put back in. And if anyone is interested in seeing it, you can absolutely find it on YouTube. And if you get it's interesting, if you get the Blu-ray version now, the widescreen version of the movie doesn't have it, but the full-screen version does.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
And
I love it.
Yeah, it's very emotional, and I remember always hating it as a kid and making fun of it. But like, there is a part where, like, so essentially, Scrooge is watching himself as a young man being broken up with by this woman that he loved,
Deservedly so.
Deservedly so for being a dick. And there's a part where she's singing, and of course she can't see or hear him, but he as his older self, like, is singing along with her and like just weeping, and it's very touching,
deeply affecting.
It was, I mean, of all the 5 versions that we watched, I mean, like, you cried, like, you. Oh yeah, you cried
intensely.
I don't think you cried at any other point.
No, I cried during other ones.
Okay.
Oh no, they almost all made me cry. Okay. Yeah, the 2009 one especially.
Did it?
It was just very bad.
Cry from pain.
I hated it.
And it's funny because the actress, her singing is amazing. Like, she's got a beautiful voice, and I said to you, she sounds like she's from Les Mis, and we looked her up, and she had been in Les Mis.
Yeah, she's absolutely played Eponine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
and she sounds like it.
Has that sort of like quality to her voice that just sounds like she should be in Les Mis.
And I will say she may not be my favorite Belle, but the Muppet Christmas Carol version is my favorite version of Belle because of that song.
Because of the song.
And the other thing I love about the song is that it gets called back later in the movie because there's a song at the end where the refrain is "The love we found."
Right.
And it's absolutely meant to be a counterpoint to that. But if you cut the song, the counterpoint doesn't make any sense, and it's just, oh, this is sweet, the love they found. But it's so much more emotional. It's so much more affecting when you have that song.
Right.
And so I disagree with Jeffrey Katzenberg. I think he's dumb.
And I
think Disney should fire him.
Belle in the 1984 version, that was the only one where they show a scene that is in the book.
I just want to make a note. I know that Jeffrey Katzenberg does not work at Disney anymore, just so everybody is aware.
Great. It also just occurred to me that as we're recording this podcast about Muppets, I am looking at the Think Different poster of Jim Henson and Kermit that's on our wall.
I love the Muppets.
Yeah.
I love them.
It's really sweet. Kermit's just looking at me.
Kermit's the best.
The 1984 version is the only one where we see a scene that's from the book, which is where we see Belle having married and had a bunch of children with her husband, and we see that she had like a happy life after all.
Yeah, I mean, props to the 84 version. That scene's really good.
Yeah, it is really good. The 1951 version has a scene that is not from the book where she's like nursing some old Irish woman in the poorhouse, so her life maybe isn't as good, which is kind of upsetting. But I really like the Belle from 1999 Patrick Stewart Christmas Carol because she is played by
Laura Fraser,
who I think is the most beautiful woman in the world.
It's really interesting. So this is one of those moments where I have a few proper crushes.
Yeah.
You have a few proper crushes.
Yes.
This is one of those interesting times when the Venn diagram crosses because we both have a truly proper crush on Laura Fraser.
Mostly from, I mean, for people who don't know, she was the lady blacksmith in A Knight's Tale. That's probably where most people know her from.
It's one of the greatest injustices, I think, in the history of cinema that William doesn't go after her and instead goes after Shannon Sossamon. Who's wonderful.
No, I hate Shannon Sossamon.
She's great. No, she's great. A Knight's Tale's wonderful.
Nope.
A Knight's Tale's wonderful.
Nope.
Maybe we'll do an episode about the Canterbury Tales and talk about A Knight's Tale, and I get to go into detail. It would be.
Yes, Laura Fraser, and she's been in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and she's great. And for people, she's in Breaking Bad in the last season. I think
she's so pretty.
She's wonderful. She's wonderful and gorgeous.
She's like got pale skin and like beautiful eyes. I love you very much.
I love you too. I think we both love her.
She's great.
We both love her, and she's wonderful.
And she's just wearing like a pretty dress. It is funny in every single version. Belle is wearing a very pretty dress in the dancing scene, and then in the breakup scene, she's always wearing a horrible bonnet. Like the breakup bonnet is terrible throughout.
Ask me how I felt about the bonnets.
How did you like the bonnets?
They're fine.
Yeah.
They're bonnets. They're fine.
Good. Okay. Okay. So that's it for Belle.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't think she was bad in any of the versions. No, hang on. We got to talk about Robin Wright.
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay, so in the 2009 version, Robin Wright plays a number of characters, including Belle.
Yes. I mean, also speaking of people did you see Wonder Woman? I mean, come on.
No, did you see The Princess Bride?
Yeah, but I like the Wonder Woman version better.
I always had a crush on her from Unbreakable.
She's like so badass in Wonder Woman. Oh my God.
No, she's incredible. I don't have a problem with her in the 2009 A Christmas Carol, but of all the versions, she has the least personality. Belle has the least personality.
Yeah, the female character's a little underrated.
Any of them. And the scene where she breaks up with Scrooge, weirdly violent.
Yeah, he like grabs her. Like it's awful to see.
It's a little misogynist. It's bad.
Yeah.
It's very, very bad. And I'm going to say unnecessarily unsettling.
Yeah.
Like, unsettling's fine. I'm okay with unsettling. I'm
But there
fine.
was no reason that he should be violent with
Yeah,
her. Like, it was really creepy.
As an audience member, I'm saying you have my permission to make me uncomfortable. That's fine. But it has to be with a purpose.
It's a Disney movie, by the way.
And this one has no purpose.
Yeah.
I really think so. Like, if what you're trying to do is show that Scrooge is a jerk, he's a jerk. We're all on board with the fact that he's a jerk.
Yeah.
You don't have to have him being physically violent towards Belle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So that's Belle.
How about Scrooge's nephew Fred and his wife? Are there minor characters that we
No, I can't.
skipped?
I can't think of any others. I think Fred and his wife are great to go to next.
Let's talk about Fred and his wife. He's okay. So there are some elements of his character that are pretty much the same throughout, other than maybe the Colin Firth one. So okay, I'm gonna talk about my least favorite version.
Go for it.
Colin Firth was in a different movie. I don't know what the hell was going on with Colin Firth. It was just yelling. Do you agree with me?
He's very emphatic.
It was just yelling. And Colin Firth, we know how I feel about Colin Firth if you've listened to the Pride and Prejudice episode. So I don't understand what was going on there.
Do you remember when we did Pride and Prejudice, I said, I can't think of a time that an actor was more perfectly cast for a part.
And now we swing in the opposite direction.
It doesn't work. It really doesn't work. Colin Firth's great, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Roger Rees, I think, is great, but I think the way that he was written is like as if he were the star in the 1984 version.
Yeah.
Like he gets like this sort of, he's so earnest. He's so over the top. He gets like this swelling background music. Like he is basically Nicholas Nickleby. Like it's just, it's very intense. His whole relationship with Scrooge. And I also thought it was really funny at the end where he was like, this is my wife, Janet. And I was like, that name just sounds incongruous. I'm sure it was a name in the 1840s, but like, in the other, they all have different names because the wife is never named because the female character is a little underwritten. So, like, I think in one version it's Clara, in one version it's Janet, in one version I don't even know. Like, some versions she doesn't have a name at all.
It seems like a lot of them have decided that their last name is Honeywell. Is that correct?
I feel like that was just the one.
I think there were two of them that did that.
Is that right?
I really think so.
I don't remember if that's from the book or not.
Yeah.
I don't think it is.
It's not in the book.
Yeah, I didn't think so either.
At least I don't remember it being in the book.
Yeah. And in Patrick Stewart version, it's Dominic West of The Wire fame. And then in The Muppet Christmas Carol, I really like the actor is very good.
Stephen McIntosh.
Okay.
He's my favorite.
Yeah.
He's absolutely my favorite
I also
Fred.
think the woman who plays his wife is adorable. Mm-hmm. She's like a redhead with like the cutest dimples, and they just look so cute together.
It's Clara, right?
Clara, yeah.
Her name is Robin Weaver.
Yeah, they're just so cute together. They're definitely the cutest couple. I don't really care for the woman who plays the wife in the Patrick Stewart.
There's a couple of things that they do in the Muppet Christmas Carol one that make it my favorite interpretation of the character. I love Stephen McIntosh. I think he's wonderful. There's a moment between him and Bob Cratchit that I love, where he walks in and he and Cratchit basically greet each other. Kermit says to him, "You're like, hi, Fred," and he just says, "Hey, Bob." And it's a beautiful moment that just shows that these are two characters who have known each other for years.
Yeah.
They don't have much of a relationship. And certainly in the book and in other adaptations, they talk about how they don't have much of a relationship. But I like the fact that they know each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing to add to tell us more about Fred's character.
Yeah, totally. And now there is one thing about the wife that I noticed on my read-through of the book that was not in any of the versions, but I believe to be the case. And I even looked in my annotated version to see if they said anything about it, and they didn't, which I think is because it was a man that annotated it, so wasn't paying attention to women's situations. I am pretty sure his wife is supposed to be pregnant. and I'll tell you why. Here's my textual evidence for it. There's a scene in Ghost
I just like think everyone's listening to this episode going, man, I hope this is the one where they finally present some textual evidence.
Textual evidence. I'm a literary scholar.
Here we go.
This is what I do.
Let's hear it.
So the scene where in the Ghost of Christmas Present, where they're all like, he's watching the nephew's Christmas party, and they're playing games. They play a game of Blind Man's Buff, and there's a little part where it says his nephew's wife didn't play, but she was made comfortable in a cozy corner by the fire. And why would she not be playing kind of an active game like other women were playing it? It's not like it's not appropriate for women to play this game because we see that she's the only one who's sitting out. So it's like, I wonder why. And then at the end, when Scrooge goes to visit them in real time to apologize for his treatment of them, he like sneaks up on them and kind of startles them, and she kind of is startled, and then there's a line that says something to the effect of Scrooge had forgotten all about the blanket in the cozy corner, or he never would have done it, meaning he had forgotten that she was pregnant, or he wouldn't have startled her.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yep. So
I'm fine with that. Yeah. I'm sure scholars agree.
This is a breakthrough.
Excuse me.
I love you.
I just had to sniffle.
I'm sorry about your sniffles.
Okay, so there's one other thing I just want to say about, it's not about Fred or his wife, but it's about Topper. Fred's friend.
Who's only in one version. Oh no, he's in the book.
Yeah, he's in the book.
But he's only really featured in one version.
In the 1999 version.
Yeah.
He's basically Fred's friend who's hitting on one of Fred's wife's sisters.
Yeah.
I hate him so much. He's a goddamn creep, and he's super skeevy, and he skeeved me out the entire time, and I couldn't stand him. And then, but the thing is, in the book, it's accurate.
Yeah.
It's accurate.
It's
it upsets me because
you
I
had
hate
that
him.
reaction and I didn't, because I was under the impression it was consensual.
And I thought that was a leap.
Okay.
I thought that was a leap. I didn't like it. And I didn't like it.
I'm very sorry.
So I would say that really covers all of the living people.
Yes.
All of the living people save one.
Yeah.
Who we will save for the end.
Yeah.
So we got some ghosts. Let's talk about some spirits.
Oh, well, it doesn't cover all the living people because we haven't talked about Bob Cratchit or Scrooge yet.
Oh my God, there's the whole Cratchits. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So we're just saving Scrooge for the end.
I'm so sorry for the Cratchits. Yeah, we got to talk about the Cratchits.
Okay. Bob Cratchit and Mrs. Cratchit.
We have to talk about Small Timothy and his parents.
Oh, yes. Small Timothy and his parents.
Let's start with the smallest of the Cratchits.
Okay.
Who in every adaptation was not always that tiny.
No, in the 1951 version, he was like 6 feet tall.
He's a tween.
Like Scrooge had to try
like
to
13.
lift him at one point and like could not.
It doesn't work. But honestly, I think my favorite version of Tiny Tim in any of them,
Muppet?
No, is the 1984 one.
Oh God. Because he actually looks sick.
He looks like he's gonna die. Any minute.
They really went to town with sort of the black under his eyes and like the pallor of his face.
He looks like shit.
He looks like shit.
He really looks like shit. He's very tiny and he looks like he's not well.
Very small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think the 1999 version is my actual favorite.
He looks like a little Daniel Radcliffe.
And he also looked like he could have been the child of the Bob and what's her name?
Mrs. Cratchit?
Bob and Mrs. Cratchit.
She doesn't have a name.
That makes sense. He actually looks like he could be their child.
Yeah.
I think, having... oh, God, what's Kermit's son's name? Robin. Having Robin play Tiny Tim makes perfect sense because they had Kermit play Bob.
He's a frog.
He's perfect. But the thing
did you notice that the boys were frogs and the girls were pigs?
Oh, yeah, it's great.
It's so cute.
It was great. No, the Muppet one handled it beautifully.
Yeah.
But Tiny Tim... we didn't
mention Miss Piggy played Mrs. Cratchit.
Mrs. Cratchit.
Yes,
I think the Tiny Tim, I think the 99 is my favorite, but I really do enjoy the 84 one because he looks like shit.
He just looks awful.
Yeah.
He just looks awful.
So you've got the rest of the children, but you've got Mrs. Cratchit.
Mrs. Cratchit.
Who's your favorite?
I love the 1999 one. I like that she has a Cockney accent.
Mm-hmm.
I like that she is kind of haggard and has bad teeth because she would have been. But I like she and Bob love each other. Mm-hmm. That's why they have 6 children.
Yeah.
Like there was one point where they kissed and I turned to you and I was like, this is why they have 6 children.
Yeah.
Like, they maybe shouldn't love each other as much and their lives would be a little easier.
No, she's definitely the best.
What is the actress's name?
Finding it. Her name is Saskia Reeves.
Yeah.
Or Saskia.
Yeah.
She's the best.
And
she's definitely
I
the
don't
best.
mean the actress has, like, I assume they made her teeth look bad because they made Richard E. Grant's teeth look really bad too.
Yeah. So I liked her a lot. I really, really liked her. I don't really remember the 1951 version.
Oh, she was like kind of like plump. She was the woman who played Mrs. Cratchit in the 1951 version was the maid in Mary Poppins.
Oh, okay.
Right? She's sort of like a brown-haired actress. Yeah.
Yeah, she's fine.
She's
fine.
Yeah. She
like everything in the 1951 version, it's fine.
It's from the 50s. Like, what are you gonna say? Like,
there's
bad?
There's really nothing I can find at fault with the 51 version. It is a very, very fine version of the story.
Yes.
The 2009 one, they're all unsettling and gross. But the 84 version, I want to talk about the thing that you took huge issue with because I don't like her.
Okay.
I didn't like this
she's
interpretation.
She's played by Susanna York, who's a very fine British actress. She is actually in one of my favorite movies of all time, which is
Superman.
Man for All Seasons.
I thought you meant Superman.
She's in one of your favorite movies and one of my favorite movies.
She's Superman's mom.
And the part that they lost it for me. So we're going to talk at the end about like love of the source material versus success of the adaptation on our quadrant. But the part where they just lost it for me completely, not just with her, but the entire version was, so there's a part where
she's sewing.
Tiny Tim is dead. And she is sewing, and the scene happens in every single version. She's sewing, and she says, and the children say, like, "Don't cry, mother." And she says, "Oh, I'm not crying. It's just the color. It hurts my eyes." And what she's doing in this version is she's, like, needle pointing a beautiful flower while they're sitting there supposed to be in mourning. And I went, it's supposed to be a shroud. That's why the color hurts her eyes, because she's sewing with black thread on black cloth and she can't see her stitches. That's why it hurts her eyes. She's not supposed to be like needle pointing a jolly poinsettia. Like, it was so upsetting that clearly, like, no one had given it any thought. No one cared. No one cared what it was supposed to be. 2 seconds before they were supposed to start filming, the actress probably said, "Oh, I'm supposed to be sewing something," and someone just, like, thrust this into her hand. Like, it really, really upset me as far as, like, the makers of the thing not understanding what the story was supposed to be about. That's all.
Yeah,
That's
no,
what I
that's
have to
great.
say.
And also Miss Piggy's good.
I love Miss Piggy. She's so good.
She's great. When at the very end, when Scrooge comes back and she says, "And I'm going to give you a piece of my mind," and then he says, "I'm going to raise your salary."
I'm going to raise you right off the pavement.
It's so good.
She's so cute.
She's so good.
Mr.
And little
Scrooge,
and the little
though
pig
he is
children.
odious and mean and badly dressed. Woo!
It's so good.
It's so good.
Oh, she's great. And then we get to Robert Cratchit.
Robert Cratchit.
Who is your favorite version of Robert Cratchit?
Kermit.
Yeah?
Kermit.
Cool. I think he's my favorite.
How could Kermit not be my favorite? I'm looking at him on our wall right
I know.
now. He's
Richard E.
so
Grant's
cute.
the best, though.
He's so good.
Richard E. Grant's
the best human.
And that was one of the, I think of all the, when we watched the 1984 version of all the casting choices that we saw, the one that I was the happiest about that I didn't know about already was that Bob Cratchit was played by David Warner, who I love.
Of Star Trek.
He's of everything, of Star Trek and Tron. David Warner's amazing. I liked his Bob. His Bob was fine.
Yeah.
But Richard E. Grant is just, he owns the part.
Yeah, he was born to play this role.
He really was. And I think that really does it for the Cratchits. Oh, no, wait. Can I talk about the Cratchit the Bob Cratchit I like the least?
Yeah.
Gary Oldman. If you had told me, oh, did you know that Gary Oldman is going to be the person you think played the worst Bob Cratchit? I would have thought,
no, I love Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman's amazing. Well, here's how you make Gary Oldman not amazing.
Make him tiny.
You make him animated. You turn him into a goblin. He, in the 2009 Disney's A Christmas Carol, he plays Bob Cratchit in addition to a number of other roles.
Yes.
I will give them points for this. Bob in the book is described as small.
Yes.
Because he's malnourished. It makes sense that poor people are small.
Yes.
Which you pointed out.
And there has been a lot of scholarship, by the way, as I mentioned, on what disease Tiny Tim is suffering from.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's just very sick.
Yeah, he's just got movie wasting disease.
Yeah, looks like shititis.
Yeah.
But he is small. They get 1 point for that. They get negative 99 points for everything else about his character. He is the most deeply unsettling character of any of the characters in the movie.
It's when he turns to the camera at the end, it's so horrifying.
Ooh. And one of the worst parts is he kind of looks like Gary Oldman. They really made him resemble Gary Oldman, which makes it so much worse.
Yeah.
If he didn't look like Gary Oldman at all, it would be different. It still would be bad, but it wouldn't be as bad. He is awful. I really, really hate this Bob. And as I said before, he suddenly becomes the narrator. It's bad.
It's bad.
It's bad, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
I didn't care for it.
Yeah. So I think that's all the living characters.
That's all the living characters.
Let's talk about some ghosts.
Oh, okay.
So there's.
Let's talk about the easy one first.
Well, I just want to make sure we're on the same page as to which ghosts there are. Marley.
Marley is the
ghost.
most important ghost.
Most important ghost. Past, present, future, and then we're going to talk about Scrooge.
I think we should do it the opposite way.
Past, present, future, Marley, Scrooge.
No. Future, present, past,
Wait, are you kidding
Marley.
me?
No, I'm not kidding at all. Because I just want to get the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come out of the way.
Okay.
Because there's not much to talk
All right,
about.
let's do it backwards.
Okay.
There's only one that made any kind of impression on you because you were real freaked out by it.
Was it only one? No, it's two.
Okay, go ahead.
No, because the 1984 one.
That was the one with that was the one that was like a gray.
He looked like a cross between a gray and Slender Man.
Yeah.
And can you tell everyone what it was like to watch this with me?
So the note that I wrote was, Jeremy is clutching my leg. It was just a lot of, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. I really don't like it. That's my impression of you.
That's accurate.
Yeah.
I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. It is one of the most unsettling things I've ever seen. I didn't care for it, which I guess means it's good.
I mean, yeah, it's supposed to be unsettling.
It's supposed to be unsettling.
I mean, all the other ones were pretty much the same.
Yeah, they're all just basically death.
Yeah. It was just the fingers of this one that I really took exception to.
That one, so that was weird because that one was...
The note right above that, that's what we call a crotch transition.
Yeah, one of the characters walks into the camera crotch level, and then they cut. It's great.
Was so bad.
I want a crotch transition in everything now. No, I feel like I have my favorite one, my least favorite one, and then one right in the middle. And the 1984 one is right in the middle because I hated it, but it was also compelling, which is good for the character.
Okay, what was your favorite one?
I think my favorite one is the 99 one.
Yeah.
I like the way they did the eyes.
Yeah, they're just kind of glowing.
Yeah, I liked that. That did it for me. I think the one that just did nothing for me was the 2009 one.
Yeah, I don't even really remember what that was like.
It's basically, in the 2009 one, they did something that was interesting where you never see the ghost, you see the shadow of the ghost.
Right.
But then, like, when the ghost points at something, the arm extends out of the shadow.
Right.
It was the kind of thing that could only be done in animation. Mm-hmm. I give them props for that. But they did something with that sequence that I don't understand. And I think it really only speaks to the hubris of having all of this technology at your fingertips.
Oh, yeah, go ahead and talk about that.
So there is a scene, which we all love from the book, the scene where the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come is chasing Scrooge through the streets of London and cracking his whip, because he's on obviously we all remember that he's on the carriage with the horses in front of it, and he's cracking his whip, and every single time he cracks his whip...
Oh, and the famous part where Scrooge shrinks to the size of a peanut.
Oh, yeah, no, every single time he cracks his whip, he shrinks a little bit, and he gets smaller and smaller until he's mouse size. Like, we all know that, and that's the part we love. Except that never happens, and no one loves that. It's just...
like 15 minutes also.
Oh, my God, it's so long. And the entire time I'm watching it, I'm just thinking, oh, right, this is a movie from 2009, and it was definitely in 3D.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just, it does nothing for me.
Awful.
Absolutely nothing for me. So that's my feelings on The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. What are your feelings?
I mean, ditto.
Ditto?
Ditto.
Oh, cool. Who's your favorite?
I kind of like the one with the long creepy fingers because it was different.
Yeah.
It was different.
I hated it, but it was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about Ghost of Christmas Present.
Oh, he is
we
the
found
one.
a fun quote online about the 1984 version played by Edward Woodward.
Edward Woodward.
Edward Woodward.
Yeah.
Do you have that written down? Do you want to recount that?
Yeah. So I'm gonna read this to you right now. Let me
Do you have it
pull up
pulled
my
up?
notes. Yeah. Hang on. I got this right here. So, I actually want to read this entire review. This is from a review on Letterboxd. I don't know if anybody here uses Letterboxd. It's a social network for movies. It's very, very good. You can follow me. This was user Sally Jane Black's review of the movie. It's been so long since I've seen or read a version of this that I actually found myself enjoying it again for the first time in ages. I tend to avoid versions of it simply because of the saturation of the story, but fuck it, it was on TV and the family copy of Die Hard has gone AWOL. This particular version has the worst Tiny Tim I've ever witnessed, but it's got some fun visuals, Marley, the Ghost of Future Past, and great actors like Reese and Scott. Oh, and the Ghost of Christmas Present is bugfuck nuts.
Bug fuck nuts.
So, I'm going to say this, just for this conversation. Any opinions I have about the Ghost of Christmas Present, and this does extend a bit towards the other ghosts as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
Does he enjoy his job?
Well, that was what I was going to say about the Patrick Stewart version, because you turned to me and said, I think he just doesn't like his job.
He might actually, the 1999, the Patrick Stewart might be my least favorite version of the character.
He just seems so mad the whole time. He seems super mad.
He's real mad about everything. His entire job is just a chore. Oh, let me bless these people. Let me bless these people. And it's fine. And Scrooge, you don't even give a shit what I'm doing right now.
Why didn't you think about that, Scrooge?
Oh, he's a dick.
He's just mean.
He's a dick. And then the Ed Wood version
he's
in
on, like,
84.
some kind of weird platform shoes. He's like 9 feet tall.
Yeah,
but his body is not proportional.
Not at all. He's tiny. He's a tiny guy they made really tall. It doesn't work. And he's mean. He's like mustache twirly.
Yeah,
awful. He is enjoying. He likes his job. Except the problem is he thinks his job is to make Scrooge miserable.
Yeah.
Which is not his job.
I gotta go with the Muppet on this one.
He is my favorite.
He's delightful.
Even though, and I'm really conflicted about that because there are some things they remove that I think are great.
Ignorance and Want.
Ignorance and Want.
Yeah, that's the Muppet is the only version that doesn't include Ignorance and Want.
Yeah, the two kids underneath his robe that are really unsettling. I love the Muppet version because he loves his job and because he loves Christmas.
And he has short-term memory problems.
It was so brilliant for them to have a character who only lives for a day have short-term memory problems.
He's so cute.
I love that.
He's great.
I love it.
He's real cute. And his beard is gets gray. It looks cool.
Yeah, they did the aging thing. They did the aging thing in a bunch of versions of it because it's from the book, obviously. I think the aging thing was very effective in the Muppet version.
Yeah,
I think it was kind of effective in the 2009 version, in the Patrick Stewart one. I think it was rather...
The 1999 one.
Yeah, it was... What did I say?
2009.
Oh, yeah, 1999. The 2009 one, let's talk about this. So there's something that's really important to talk about if we're going to talk about 2009. Who does Jim Carrey play? Everyone. He plays Scrooge and he plays all the ghosts.
Yeah, the Ghost of Christmas Present had like a weird northern accent for some reason, like Liverpool or like Manchester.
Here's the problem, and this is going to come up again. I really think they could have stood to do a little more dialect work with Jim Carrey.
It was really bad.
And I'm going to go on record. I love Jim Carrey.
I don't.
I really do.
I find him repellent.
I think he is a goddamn American treasure.
I don't.
I really do, even though he's Canadian.
He's anti-vaccine.
Wait, you really hate him that much?
Yeah.
I didn't know you hated him that much.
I find his personal viewpoints shocking.
Yeah, but he broke up with his personal viewpoints.
He still talks about it though.
Yeah. Separate the art from the artist.
I can't.
He's amazing.
I can't.
He's amazing. I think he's an incredible goddamn talent.
We don't need to have this conversation on air.
Yeah. But anyway, they made the choice to have him play all the ghosts. I would say his version of the Ghost of Christmas Present is maybe the most book accurate version.
Okay.
Because they include a couple of things that are really good. First of all, he does have Ignorance and Want.
Yes. But
there's also the one line that we both kind of hooked on when we were watching it, which is Scrooge says something about how, well, if you love the poor so much, why would you have...
Oh yeah, and that was weirdly.
Can you
accurate
describe
to
it
the
really
book.
quick?
Yeah, so they're like looking at the, and it's. I'm sure they didn't include it in any other version because it's kind of an obscure reference, but it's basically like people didn't used to have ovens in their houses, so they had these bake shops, and that was the only place you could go to get your food cooked. So like the 2009 version is the only one that they kind of accurately portray, like they're not cooking the goose in their house. They're cooking it in this bake shop, and they have to go and get it and fetch it from the place.
Props to the 2009 version because it needs all it can get.
So like basically what Scrooge is saying is like, I guess apparently at the time there was some sort of movement to close the bake shops on Sundays. And Scrooge says, why would your people want to deprive these poor people of like the only good meal they're gonna get all week, because Sunday's usually the only time that they can go to the bake shops and get their food cooked. Mm-hmm. And I'm paraphrasing, but I did highlight this line when I was reading, which he says something to the effect of, there's been there are a lot of things done in my name that have nothing to do with me. Don't look to me, look to the person that's actually doing it. Yeah. Which I thought was very...
We say like men in robes or something like that.
Something to that effect. Yeah. So anyway, I thought that was very relevant.
There's a really nice thing about Dickens' view of organized religion. Yeah. But no, I do give them props for having an accurate one. But you cannot get past the fact that Jim Carrey just sounds like he's doing a bad Beatles impression, and it doesn't work. So that's The Ghost of Christmas Present. Yeah. I like it when he likes his job. Yeah. That's bottom line for me.
So Ghost of Christmas Past.
All right.
Now, these were the most varied, I thought.
There's a lot of room for interpretation in the text.
Yeah. So Muppet version, it's a child. Mm-hmm. Right?
A little ethereal girl.
A little ethereal child. What was it in the 1984 version?
It's just a person.
Oh, no. It was the woman with the David Bowie wig.
Yes.
God, that wig was very bad.
Yeah.
Very bad. Could not take that seriously.
That was probably the worst one. For me, that was the worst one.
There was a line in that one. So they're talking that just like, again, like just ruined it for me. They're talking about, so we didn't mention, but Scrooge had a little sister that he loved very much, whose name was either Fan or Fran, depending on the version. Right. And his nephew is her son, and she died either when he was young or in childbirth or, whatever.
Depending on the version.
And they just have like this need to over-explain things in the 1984 version, and the ghost is like, you don't love your nephew because he bears a strong resemblance to your sister. And it's like, he doesn't. The actor really doesn't. So why would you say that? Because it's not necessary, and it's very strange. It's very strange.
They're trying something, and I don't think it works.
It doesn't work. In the 1999 version, it's Joel Grey. Mm-hmm. And then in let's talk about the 2009 version, because that was that was worse than the David Bowie wig. That was when I kept saying, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, I don't like it.
So here's my opinion of all of them. I didn't love any of them. Yeah. None of them. None of them. Because for me, every single one, I don't know what it is about these interpretations. Every single one half worked for me. Like the Muppet version. I loved the voice. Mm-hmm. I loved the ethereal nature of the character. She looked like a dead child. Yeah. Like her face is deeply unsettling and she looks dead. Yeah. Joel Grey. He's great. He's Joel Grey. And I think from an acting perspective, he's my favorite. Yeah, yeah. But I hate the look of him. Yeah. I think he looks just awful.
Oh, I think he looks great.
The costume design, I can't stand the costume. I can't stand the makeup. I can't stand the wig. I think he just looks really awful.
I like it.
I loved the design of the 2009 one.
Oh, no. I thought it was awful.
So essentially they turned the character into a candle. It's a living candle, and the head is the flame.
Creepy, and it's like not attached to anything. Oh, I hated it.
It did it for me.
Oh,
the design of it 100% did it for me.
Wow. Is this going to be our first fight?
No, this is not going to be our first. I'm sure we've had other fights leading up till now.
Oh.
But the thing that didn't work for me is, again, Jim Carrey's weird accent, which for this ghost was Irish.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't work. And the
Ooh.
character speaks in this very slow,
Oh, so
breathy,
slow.
very slow and very breathy, and just fades
Oh, God, don't do
in
it. I
and
don't like
out.
it.
And it was bad. It was
No.
bad and doesn't work. And you
It's-
couldn't even tell what the character was saying half the
Oh, it's
time.
terrible.
But I love the design. I love the design.
I know.
But the Ghost of Christmas Past, like all of those sequences, those other than the 1951 version being really, really long.
Really long.
All of these versions had their pluses and their minuses.
Yeah.
One of the things I really like about the Muppet version,
Yeah.
every single time Michael Caine is seeing something from his past, I really feel like he's feeling the emotions.
Oh, I would say as far as acting goes, Michael Caine, like, I mean, and I say this that loves Patrick Stewart deeply, Michael Caine is the best actor. I mean, I guess we're going to talk about Scrooge in a second.
Then let's do Marley really quick.
Okay. Let's talk about Marley real quick, and then we can come back to Scrooge. The 1984 Marley was the worst. It was awful. It was so bad.
That's when it lost us.
There was no special effects. It was just a man painted gray.
And so there's a thing in the book where Marley has the scarf around his head. He takes off the scarf and his jaw falls down.
Yeah.
Like, because it's not attached.
He's dead.
In the 2009 version, with the animated one, they could actually show that.
Yeah.
And also the 2009 one had my favorite version of the gag of Marley turning into the doorknob.
Yeah.
Or the doorknob turning into Marley. That's my favorite one.
Right. Because it's animated, so it's easier to
It's much easier to do. But here's my problem. If you can't, in special effects, show his jaw falling off his face...
It was like a community theater.
Just don't do it.
Just don't do it.
But in the 1984 version, the guy walks in the room and there's no way to describe it. If you just look up on YouTube, Marley, Christmas Carol 1984, you'll find it. He takes it off and he's just standing there and he just drops his jaw.
Just goes, blah.
Like, my jaw's not attached to anything. Blah. And it doesn't work even a little.
And there's no special effect. Like, he's not see-through. He's literally just painted gray.
And just standing there.
Like, it looks like... Well, we said we thought it was maybe one step up from community theater. Perhaps it was a small regional theater.
It feels like regional theater.
Yeah.
And then we get to... I think my favorite version of Marley is actually the 99 one.
Is it?
I really think he's the best one. It's kind of like Cratchit.
Yeah.
I think Richard E. Grant is the best actual version of the character, but Kermit's my favorite.
Yeah.
I think the same way, the version of Marley that's in the 99 one, he is Marley from the book.
Yeah.
But
I really love the Muppets.
I mean,
It's Stellar and Waldorf.
they make a change, so now it's two Marleys.
We're Marley and Marley. Our hearts were painted black.
It's great.
We should have known our evil deeds would put us both in shackles.
So, yes, you know all the words.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. They're just a delight. And
They rhymed black and shackles. Like, that's some Lin-Manuel Miranda shit right there.
Exactly. And they, like we've said before, they are perfectly cast.
So good.
They're perfectly cast. And then when they have their scene in the flashbacks when they're interacting with Fozziwig.
It was dumb. It was obvious.
It was short. I loved it. It works for their version of the story perfectly.
It's so good.
So they're my favorite Marley, but I actually think the 99 one's the best one.
Before we move on to Scrooge, can we just talk about, I just have one note on a very random thing from the 1984 version.
Sure.
Did you notice that it was, when you get to the end of the credits, it's copyrighted Travenol Laboratories Limited?
Can we talk about that in a few minutes?
Yeah.
Because I have some things to say about
it as well.
Did you do
research on it?
I did some research.
Oh my god. Okay. All right. I'm really excited to find out.
So let's talk about Scrooge.
Talk about Scrooge.
He's fine. He's fine. He's fine in all of them. I think we can move on.
Cool. All right. Done.
No. Okay. Here's the deal.
Okay. Maybe for talking about Scrooge, maybe we can just go like chronologically through.
Okay.
Alistair Sim.
He's great. There's only one part of the movie I think that lost me.
What's that?
So all of them have to show this character in two different ways. They have to show him before his experience and after his experience.
Right.
Alistair Sim's version of the character before the experience is like the prototypical, the proverbial Scrooge.
He's just like,
He's Scrooge.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't fault, if anybody said, oh, Alistair Sim's my favorite Scrooge, I would look at them and go,
great.
That's a good choice, sir.
Yeah.
Like, that is a good choice.
Sir or madam.
Sir or madam, that's a good choice. He's great.
Or non-binary.
But his version of the character after his experience,
It's crazy.
bug fuck nuts. to call back
See,
a
that
phrase.
was actually my favorite line from when I was a kid in any version, because at one point he yells, "I must stand on my head! I must stand on my head!" And I love that.
It loses me a little bit.
Yeah.
He's a little crazy. Then we've got George C. Scott. Now,
if anyone just heard some weird noises in the background, it was our dog getting out of his bed, walking up to me, stretching, and then collapsing on the floor.
Yep, he flumped.
Yeah.
We got to go to old-fashioned flump
I think
over
he wants
here.
to go for a walk.
He probably does. We're almost done.
Yeah.
So the George C. Scott one, I'll say this really quickly. I think he's a hell of an actor, and I think he really sold it in a lot of places. My problem is he's very subtle.
Yeah.
And he's very quiet and measured in his Scrooge.
Yeah.
The problem is he's quiet and measured as Scrooge
Throughout. Yeah.
I wrote down, this was one of my notes from it. When the Ghost of Christmas Past takes him back and he sees all his childhood friends, in every other version, he's like, wait a minute, I was a kid and I know him and I know him. This Scrooge is apparently fine with all of this.
He's just like, oh yeah.
He's just like, yeah, this is where I grew up. Those are my friends. Like, dude, there's no variation.
I did not feel that his Scrooge went on a journey of any kind.
No.
I did not really see a difference from the beginning to the end.
Yeah. He's still George C. Scott, and I think he's very magnetic as a performer. I actually really liked the scene at the end where he's talking to the boy, telling him to go get the turkey.
Yeah.
I actually really liked that scene with him.
Yeah.
But on the whole, it didn't work.
Yeah.
It really didn't work. And he's miscast and his accent's not there all the time.
Variable.
It's very good sometimes, and sometimes it's mediocre.
Not great. Michael Caine.
Michael Caine
I think he is Michael Caine is a goddamn movie star.
Yeah.
Like, Michael Caine, you can do a close-up on Michael Caine being emotional about something, and he can make his eyes get red.
And he can also make my eyes water for some reason. No, he's a goddamn movie star.
He's a goddamn movie star. Like, it's not just, like, crying or pretending to cry or acting or even just, like, I can think of something sad to make me cry. Like, he literally can make his eyes turn red on cue. It's crazy what this man can do.
He is, I think it's the finest performance of Scrooge that has ever been committed to film.
I'm laughing because you said that so strongly, but, like, I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
And he plays it like he plays it completely straight. Like, he's acting against Muppets. But like, if you just saw his performance, you would never guess. If you didn't know it was Muppets, you would never guess.
Well, so I want to read this really quickly.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is actually something he said when they were talking about his taking it on. He said very specifically to the producers and to Brian Henson, he said, if I'm going to take this, I'm going to play this movie like I'm working with the Royal Shakespeare Company. I will never wink. I will never do anything Muppety. I'm going to play Scrooge as if it is an utterly dramatic role and there are no puppets around me.
Yeah.
First of all, Muppets are not puppets, but I'll forgive him for thinking that.
He's an old man.
But I think that really speaks to how good he is in it.
Yeah.
He really takes it seriously.
Yeah, he took it seriously. And clearly the directors of the film were like, yes, this is the way to go with this.
Yeah, he's in the movie. He is terrifying, and he is himself terrified, and he is sad, and he's happy and joyful. There's that moment when we have the song that the Ghost of Christmas Present is singing as they walk through the streets, and he and Scrooge do this amazing little dance together.
Do-do-do. 'Tis the season to be jolly
and
it's joyous.
They do this little dance, and it's great. It's just so good.
And I was doing it, wasn't I, on the couch? He's just sort of like it's sort of an arm dance. You can't.
It's
see
mostly
me,
arms,
but it's a lot of like kind of thrusting each shoulder forward one at a time.
I guess to close out Michael Caine, I will say one thing about him.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe not the strongest dancer
or singer.
Definitely not the strongest singer.
He's doing his goddamn best.
But he acts the hell out of it, and it works.
He's doing his best.
Then we get to Sir Patrick.
Sir Patrick.
So
here's a couple things I loved about Patrick Stewart's Scrooge.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was curious. Like, when he asked questions of Marley, I felt like Marley's ghost. I felt that it was because he wanted to know the answer. Like, he's like, okay, I've actually always been wondering this. Why do spirits walk the earth? Like, he really was interested to know. So I like that. And I really did feel that his Scrooge had a sense of humor.
Yes.
Like, I thought that it was subtle, like...
dark.
And dark. Like, there's a lot of subtlety about this character. And Patrick Stewart has been playing this character for 30 years.
On stage.
Which you could tell in his performance. Mm-hmm. Like, clearly there were some things that he does in his one-man show of A Christmas Carol. that he was like, no, this is my thing. I'm going to do it. It's my thing. And it maybe didn't work so well.
Can I talk about one?
Please do.
Okay, so clearly, this is so important to him. After his experience, Scrooge laughs for the first time. And the way Patrick Stewart decided to do it was, oh no, this is almost painful for him. Like something is rising up from his gut and he's coughing and doesn't know what it is, but it turns out
it's a laugh.
It's a laugh.
But it sounds like he's dying.
The shadows of the things that would have been can be dispelled. They will be. I know they will.
It sounds like he's dying. It's deeply unsettling. And I bet every time he's ever done it in a show, he walks off stage thinking, they loved that moment.
That.
And I bet they didn't. That didn't work for me. But that's my only problem with him is that he's doing it on first stage.
Can I say something really quickly about Patrick Stewart?
Yeah.
And his portrayal of Scrooge. And this also goes back to my semi-relationship with Roger Rees. So Roger Rees.
So what is your relationship with Roger Rees?
Okay, so Roger Rees, when I was in college, I interned at a summer theater festival, which I won't name.
Why?
I don't know. I guess I can name it. It was the Williamstown Theater Festival.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason not to name it.
Okay. The Williamstown Theater Festival, of which Roger Rees was the artistic director, like the following summer he got the job. So the summer that I was there, he was up there a lot because he was like interviewing for the job. And because I worked in company management, one of the things that I had to do pretty much all day, every day was drive actors back and forth from the train station and the airport. But both of those things were an hour away in Albany. So I spent a lot of time in my car with different folks, like one-on-one. And so I spent a lot of time that summer. I'm going to get choked up. I spent a lot of time that summer in my car, just me and Roger Rees. Like, it was amazing. It was like the best experience of my life. He was fantastic. He was kind. He was truly interested in me as a human being, despite the fact that he had no reason to be. He was interested in what I had to say. He was interested in like my thoughts and feelings about like things like the programming at the theater festival and like what I thought about it and what changes I thought should be made and lots of different things. And I said, I feel like this is a boys club and you'd never do any plays by women. And like the next season when he was the artistic director, there were plays by women. And like, not that I think it was because of me saying that, but like I really feel like I really felt heard and seen, and there was no need for him to be as nice as he was to me.
And sadly.
So a couple summers ago, he passed. He had brain cancer, I believe. And he died like pretty suddenly. He was actually in a play at the time. He was and like had to like sort of, he was taking a break for health reasons, then he never came back. Anyway, he died pretty suddenly of like a very bad cancer.
So when was the AMA? That was like last year?
So that was like a couple, yeah. It was like 6 months or a year after he died. Patrick Stewart did an Ask Me Anything in AMA on Reddit, and I knew that it was coming, so I was like ready to go, and I was one of the first people to get my question out there, so he actually answered it. And so what my question was I know I was really sad to hear about Roger Rees's death. I know you worked with him. What is your favorite memory of him? And he answered me, and what he said was, Dear Roger Rees saw my performance of Scrooge in A Christmas Carol, and he came backstage and told me that I could never act Scrooge. I simply was Scrooge because Scrooge lived within me, or something worse to that effect. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's my little story that ties all of these actors together, and yeah. It was just lovely.
I think it's really safe to say that like Patrick Stewart has a very, very close relationship with Scrooge.
Yes.
And with this story.
Yes.
His version, the only fault I can find with it is that he is a theater actor.
Yeah.
Michael Caine is a movie star.
Movie star. Yeah.
And it shows.
Yeah.
I think there are times within the movie that he could have reined it in a little bit.
Yeah.
And then we have Jim Carrey.
Whew. Rough.
It's rough.
Rough.
It's rough. It's just the character doesn't look good. His hair doesn't look good. The animation doesn't work. His accent is very strange. And he's very dark and violent.
Yeah, it just didn't work for me. I mean, I feel like we've talked about it.
Yeah, I almost don't have anything to say about it beyond what we've already said.
Yeah.
It just
didn't work for me.
It didn't work for me.
Okay, well, there it is. So what we're going to start doing is we're going to talk about the quadrant. So the quadrant is for any given adaptation. I'm going to draw it right here on my paper.
Which you can all see.
So we'll put it in the show notes. So there's sort of two lines. One is basically on this quadrant there's two axes. One is so the creators didn't care at all about the source material all the way to the creators really loved the source material. And then the other axis is unsuccessful to successful. So obviously the optimal thing would be they really loved the source material and they made a great adaptation. But you could not care about the source material and
still make a great one. Or you could love it.
Or you could love it and make a bad one. Mm-hmm. Or you could not care about it and also make a bad one.
Right.
So why don't we start? 1951. What do you think?
And obviously we're making some assumptions.
So this is literally just based on our observation.
Does the production itself seem to show a love of the source material or not?
Yes.
The 1951 version, I don't know that it particularly did.
I would say no because they made so many changes.
Yeah.
So I would say no, but I do feel like it was successful.
Yes, I would agree with that.
So not loved, but successful.
Right. Then 1984.
Not loved and also bad.
I need to talk about this.
Yeah, can you talk about the Tramadol pill company or whatever this is?
Well, I can't talk about that necessarily, but I can talk about some things I found out. So, would it surprise you to know that all of the producers of this were American?
No.
Would it surprise you to find out that the screenwriter was American?
No.
Would it surprise you to find out that the screenwriter also wrote Pippin?
Yes.
So, this to me it's basically written by Roger O'Herson. He wrote Pippin, and it's produced by these producers: Robert Fouise, and a couple of other producers. They, based on their filmographies, they essentially just did documentaries. A documentary series called The Body Human.
Oh dear.
And this producer, his top two credits are The Body Human, Facts for Girls, and The Body Human, Becoming a Man.
Oh, God. So, like, PSAs.
PSAs. Exactly. He also, this is interesting, he produced a sequel to Patton for TV in 1986 starring George C. Scott.
Oh, my God.
So 2 years later, he worked with George C. Scott again on a sequel to Patton for TV.
Oh, my God.
And his producing partners all did The Body Human as well. So, to me, this is probably, again, we're making assumptions, maybe one of the most creatively bankrupt versions of any of them. This really feels like it exists to make a buck.
Yeah.
They needed to do a production of it. The studio, the TV studio said, hey, we're going to do this. And they said, cool, we'll do it. It's Christmas Carol. It's fine. How hard could it be?
Yeah.
Which I think it was especially lampooned in, I think very specifically the George C. Scott version was lampooned a few years later in Scrooged with Bill Murray.
Got it.
Which we'll watch at some point in the future.
Yeah.
It was directed by a British director named Clive Donner. I only want to say this is his IMDb biography.
Oh dear. Okay.
I'm not going to read the whole thing. He did a few things. He did What's New Pussycat, The Nude Bomb. I'm just going to read the last couple sentences of his biography.
Okay.
Among his best work, there were a critically acclaimed filming of Frederick Raphael's thriller Rogue Male and a faithful and well-received adaptation of Charles Dickens' famous novel A Christmas Carol with George C. Scott as Scrooge. Well, no, it was well-received.
It was not faithful.
Unfortunately, that was followed by the notorious Arthur the King, a bizarre, convoluted, and disjointed mess about which less is said, the better.
Oh boy, that's in his bio.
That's his bio on IMDb.
Oh my God, he wrote that,
Oh my God.
Like he clearly wrote that.
it feels very creatively bankrupt. It
Yeah.
really feels like they do not care about it. Parts of it are successful, but I think we both agree this is unsuccessful.
It was unsuccessful.
So they don't
that
care
is in the
and
hate
unsuccessful.
bad category.
Yeah.
Muppet Christmas Carol.
So Disney basically came to the Henson production company with A Christmas Carol and said, "Will you make this?"
Yeah. No,
This is-
I think it shows a great love for the source material.
I don't think it does.
You don't think it does?
Well, I think it's interesting. It doesn't feel to me like they did it because they love A Christmas Carol, but one thing I think you can say about the Henson Company is that when they do something, they do it.
Yeah.
And they commit to it. And I think that's why it's so good.
Well, I'm gonna put it right on the line, but I'm gonna put it way up in the good section, but right on the line between didn't love and loved, because I don't know. I think someone somewhere along the line understood that source material. I don't know that you can do that without it.
I think it was very successful.
Yeah.
There's some things about it that it is one of the most accurate retellings of it, which is just amazing that it is. Did you say you found out some stuff about the costumes?
Oh yeah. So I looked up. There's a website that I really like called Frockflix, and they do reviews of historical costumes in like period TV and movies. And basically they said the costumes are shockingly accurate. The only thing that isn't quite as it would have been is the silhouettes, because you're dressing Muppet bodies and not human bodies. So like Beaker is obviously a very different shape and like Miss Piggy is not corseted. And so she's obviously a very different shape than like a human being would be. But especially they said especially the menswear was like spot on perfect. They said the only thing that they really quibbled with was the flashback scenes, like the Fozziwig dance. They thought that was a little too early in time. It was kind of like 1780s, 1790s, and it should have been more like 1810s, because otherwise it didn't really work.
But suffice it to say,
very accurate.
Very accurate. Yeah. It really, it's very successful.
Yes.
99.
I mean, I don't think you can doubt. I mean, Patrick Stewart was an executive producer on the thing. Like,
yeah.
I think it was successful, and I think it was loved.
If this whole idea is what you're measuring the success of an adaptation by, this is the best adaptation of A Christmas Carol.
Yes.
Because it is by people who love it deeply and also do it really well.
Yes.
Yeah. Then 2009.
That's
it for this week. No, 2009. Can I say something about it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think they do love A Christmas Carol. I don't think they get A Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
It is really faithful. Like there's stuff that's in this one that
It's
isn't
not
in the other
else.
four.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
But to be so kind of page accurate, it completely misses the spirit of the book.
Yeah. I'm going to put it right on the line, but it's in the bad. It's down in the bad category.
Maybe they loved it, but also it's not good.
Yeah.
It's not successful.
Yeah. All right.
So I think we cracked it.
Two Jews cracked A Christmas Carol.
I think we did. Now, I will say, I don't want to make too many promises, but there are certainly many other versions of this that we could talk about. And I think it'd be really fun next Christmas to do a follow-up.
Yeah.
And talk about all those other ones.
Sounds good to me.
So we will see you...
Watch this space.
...in 2 weeks. And then if you only want to listen to Christmas Carol, we'll see you in a year.
But come back in 2 weeks.
You should come back in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, if you would like to send us any questions, any comments, if you disagree with us or are able to enlighten us on any of the topics we talked about, you can email us at adaptorperishcast@gmail.com. You can tweet at us at adaptcast, and you can find us on the web at adaptorperish.com. We certainly would love for you to tell your friends about the podcast.
Rate and review us on iTunes.
Rate and review us on iTunes. We really appreciate it. But thank you so much for listening.
Thanks so much. See you next week. See you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.